Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I've done something a little bit different where I've actually fixed and redecorated my Vans. I've had these Vans for a longest of time and I figured I need a little kawaii shoes in my life, so that's exactly what I did today. So to start off with, I obviously took my old Vans, and these are just the classic slip-ons, and I had these for about a year. This is why they're looking a little disheveled and broken. But anyway, I actually have a hole in the very toe of the left hand shoe. I have a few cracks in the rubber seals around the front, but all of like the soles and everything like that are in perfect condition, so I figured they would be the perfect pair for me to redecorate. Anyway, to start off with, I fixed the hole on the front by just basically taking a needle and thread and putting loads of stitches into it, kind of patching it up to give it a little bit of extra fabric to work with. Now you can of course stick a piece of fabric over it, that'll be a little bit more bulky, and that's why I just decided to stitch over it as little stitches as I could kind of get away with, still closing up the hole. Next, to completely seal that into place, I actually got some carpet glue, and this was latex based, and that bit's very important, but I just kind of popped that onto the kind of bit where I stitched over and tapped it down with my finger. As you can see, it did go off colour into like more of an orangey off-white colour, and that was just because of the latex in it, but basically this just creates a rubber seal over that stitch that you've done and really secures it. Next, what I then did was I painted the whole of the shoe with a acrylic mix. I mixed half acrylic and half water into a little pot, and then with one of those like sponge applicators that you get from the craft store in like the kids section, I just kind of dotted all of this all the way over, making a really nice coat and kind of blending it into the fabric so that it was more fabricy than kind of painty. I just wanted to really kind of like mix it right into the fabric, get it all in there and just get it nice and fresh looking. This is also a perfect way to kind of freshen up shoes if you want to make them white, so yeah, there's a little tip there. I also did the exact same on the other shoe, not just the one that I used the latex on. I just wanted to have a nice base for when I do the kind of galaxy effect in a minute. To remove any of the paint on the rubber, I just take a baby wipe and wipe that off while still wet. Once the white layer had fully dry, it does feel a little bit rough, but nothing too much because it was mixed in with water. I then did the exact same with three other colours, the purple, the blue and the pink. I just mixed at a ratio of acrylic paint with 50-50 with some cold water mixed in. I just mix it up with a paintbrush and then dab it all on with one of those sponge applicators again. So to make the galaxy kind of effect, I just popped little bits of colour on at a time and then did the corresponding like colour that will blend into it next. So for example, I did like pink at the toe and then I did purple and moved on to the blue and then back to the purple and pink, just to make it blend really nicely and kind of fade all into each other. I mean, you could obviously do the galaxy whatever colours you want, but I just chose these ones as I was basing it off little twin stars. As you can see on the left shoe here, I did actually use too much paint and it started frothing up, so I did actually just use my sponge applicator to kind of spread it a little bit as well as tapping it on. Again, using a baby wipe, I just wiped off all the paint that was on the rubber edges, and that just left it nice and neat. Now, the next step, I did actually draw on the little twin stars with pencil, but I don't know what happened. I think I must have forgot to press film at that point. But I just drew out the pencil drawing, and then taking just some neat acrylic paint and a tiny brush, I then just started painting away. So I painted the very bottom bit with a light pink and then with skin tones obviously on the skin tone bit, and just kept painting like to the colours that little twin stars are, using just pure acrylic paint. Now the acrylic paint that I used weren't any type of brands, anything like that, they were just store brands. I know the white here was Hobbycraft in the like opaque white, and it really does help when you have opaque so that you only do kind of one layer rather than building up and building up, because then you end up with a really thick plastic layer, which is not what you want. You want to get away with as little paint as possible. So like I said, I just carried on painting and just coloured in all the design, including the little guy on the front and then all the little stars all the way around. As you can see here, it does really help when you have a nice opaque acrylic, as it covers up the pencil lines just perfectly. But when you paint with the acrylic paint and then draw a pencil on it, you should just be able to rub it off with a nice strong eraser. Here I actually dropped my paintbrush, which I was really annoyed about, but I just carried on fixing the star, and then I went back in with some blue to patch up that mess. A baby wipe really does come in handy, so I recommend having a pack of those to your side just in case this happens to you. Next, with a dotting tool, I then popped 3 dots on each of the stars to kind of make them more like shooting stars or add a little bit of extra dimension to it. And like I said, I just used a dotting tool, dipped in some acrylic paint and just did 3 dots on each of those. Once all of the acrylic paint was dry, I then went in with a Posca pen in the colour gold and just did the outline around all of the stars. This Posca pen was the, like I said, Posca pen in gold, but it was the PC1MR, and that is the one with the metal nib, which really lets you kind of do outlines a lot better than the fabric ones. So yeah, I really recommend this pen for that. Anyway, what I then did was I took a normal pencil again and just drew out where I wanted the face to be, as I know this is quite important to get right, and as soon as you get the expression wrong, it just throws off the whole pattern. So yeah, I just drew out the face with a pencil and then went around the whole of Kiki's face with a gold marker pen again. I also then coloured in where I popped the face on. I didn't actually rub it off, I just put the gold over the top and it worked just perfectly fine. And I just carried on going until all of the image was completely outlined. Now, I have used Posca pens on shoes before and it is pretty weatherproof, but I like to seal mine in for a bit of extra kind of security, and especially living in the UK, it gets super rainy, so no matter what type of shoes you have, they will always get ruined. So to seal all of my artwork in, what I then did was took some Mod Podge, and I actually used the matte clear one of that. I know they do glossy and sparkly and all that, but I just used the matte one because I wanted it to be like the most matte finish. Anyway, to make them a little tiny bit more interesting, I actually took these little pearls that I got from Hobbycraft as well. These are by the brand Dovecraft, and what I did was I put the little pink ones and a few little white ones all around the front just to give it a bit of extra kind of oomph to the front basically, and then I just carried on Mod Podging all the rest of the shoe in. I also did the exact same on the other one, but I did like put a pearl over that hole just to kind of disguise it a tiny bit more. Once all of that layer of Mod Podge was completely dry, I then went ahead and did a second coat just to seal in the pearls a little bit more and just to give it a bit of extra protection, which is just what you want when they are on your feet. I did spill a bit down the side, but I just wiped that off with my finger and it was absolutely fine. So once the Mod Podge was completely dry for the second coat, my shoes were then complete. Now I'm really happy with how these turned out. They look so much better than what they did before. I would go as far to say that they look almost new, and before they just looked like they needed to go in the bin, especially with the holes in. So yeah, I'm really happy with them. They look super kawaii with all the colours, and I love the pearls on the front. I know it might not be some people's cup of tea, but you know, you can design them however you want, and that's the beauty of doing DIY. You can just do it for yourself and make them just the way you want them. But I do hope that some of you like this design, because I've had this kind of idea in my head for the longest of times hoping that Vans would bring out a collaboration with Little Twin Stars, and me being impatient, I figured now was the right time to just do it for myself. So anyway, I hope you did enjoy this video. Then if you did, then please do give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!